Pathmonk is the intelligent tool for website lead generation. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in their buying journey separates you from the competition online. Pathmonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50%. Add Pathmonk to your website in seconds. Let the AI do all the work and get access to 50% more qualified leads while you keep doing marketing and sales as usual. Check us on pathmonk.com. Welcome to today's episode. Let's talk about today's guest. We have Brad Thibeau from Everlance, head of platform partnerships with them. How are you doing today, Brad?
I'm great. Thanks, Ernesto. I'm excited to be here.
Excited as well for you being here, but to learn a little bit more about Everlance, and well, I'm sure our listeners are as well. So let's kick it off with that, Brad. In your own words, can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so Everlance is really all about automating the tedious tasks that come with mobile work. So anyone that's driving for work, whether you're self-employed, whether you're with a small business or even with an enterprise, our goal is to just make your life easier. So whether you're coming to us for taxes, you need to get reimbursed or anything along those lines, we found that this was an incredibly painful process, a very inundated and outdated process. And so our founders in 2016 kind of had this vision for what, a mobile first platform could look like in this space. Started out with mileage tracking and have since expanded well beyond that into plenty of different tools that will help these types of workers. So really at the end of the day, in one word, it's just trying to make this as effortless as possible.
Okay, perfect. Great to hear that. And so then that way our listeners could get a good understanding there of Everlance. What would you say then is that key problem that you guys like to solve for clients?
Yeah, great question. So we found that a lot of our clients before they come to us are doing this either by hand. So they're like writing down, where they are, where they're going, how many miles they're about to drive or just drove, purpose of the trip, and like all these different types of things by hand. Obviously, with this right here, that's not needed anymore. And so we've taken on the process of doing all that in the background, to help these users, whether it's a report for their taxes to reduce that burden, or it's to get reimbursed by their employer. We do that all automatically. We also have expense tracking, which allows you to link up a credit card or a bank account to your accounts to make sure that, same type of process, whether you're reporting your expenses for taxes or you're reporting your expenses for work to get reimbursed. We can do that automatically. Users can expect to see a very intuitive and easy process of classifying them. If it's a personal trip, you just swipe one way. If it's a work trip, you swipe the other. Personal trips go away, and work trips go into a report that's generated for you that's IRS compliant and easy to grab whenever you want, however you need it.
Okay, ease of use, perfect, awesome to hear that. Then, so what would you say then is there a vertical that you guys like to go for? Is there an ideal ICP, or is it open to anyone?
Yeah, it's a good question. So ICP is definitely it varies quite a bit. We've seen all walks of life that have come to Everlance. We do in the self-employed space. We do really well with like realtors, photographers, artists. We do really well in the gig space as well, as you can imagine. DoorDashers, Lyft drivers, Uber drivers, these types of this work where you're using your car for work and you need to separate out your personal trips and your work trips. We do really well there. And then same type of profile on our business side as well with our enterprise and with our small businesses. Anyone who's using their vehicle for work. So we do well with a lot of salesmen. We do really well in the beer industry with wholesalers and distributors. And so, yeah, it's the beauty of our platform is really anyone can come to it. And so we've seen all walks of life. I think we had just in the last 30 days, we've had over 30,000 different types of income sources come to our platform, which is really interesting. So it always leads to some very cool stories that we get from our customers as well.
Okay, interesting. All right, perfect. Thanks for that. So then, how would then somebody usually find out about Everlance? Is there a top client acquisition channel for you guys?
Yeah, we do a lot of inbound throughout all of our ICPs. So we focus on paid ads, we focus on organic growth, and partnerships. Are really the main three channels. And then we also do a lot of like trade shows and stuff like that. We like to go to where our customers are to be able to talk about, how there is a better way than just submitting these old spreadsheets or these notebooks of paper logs and expenses. So yeah, but I would say the main three channels that we do are paid marketing, like everyone else, organic, which is encompassing of both the app stores and SEO efforts, and then our partnerships with great platforms and companies such as like DoorDash and real estate associations and Lyft and some of these other large platforms.
Okay, interesting, perfect. Thanks so much for that. So that way, our listeners who are tuned in could go ahead and visit you. They can always check you out at everlance.com. What role then does the website play for client acquisition?
Yeah, very large. So we've had the fortunate outcome of being at scale in this space. But that being said, even no matter how big or little you are, you hear something for the first time, and what's your first reaction, right? You're like, I'm going to Google this. I'm going to go to their website, see what this company is all about, see what these products are all about. We see that same type of funnel, and so our website's definitely important to drive downloads, to drive meetings with decision makers, as well as we use it to post free resources for our users as well. So even if you might not be an Everlance customer today, we'll still provide some resources for you to hopefully be able, to be top of mind later down the road when you might need an Everlance solution. So we use it for quite a bit. It's really our lifeblood.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Brad. So then, is there any tools or tips or methods that you would recommend to our listeners as far as some website lead generation?
Yeah. So I've had the fortunate piece of my career where I've seen a lot of different things, especially in the tech space. And one recommendation I make is like, just don't assume that what works in one space will work in another. And so I always say test, because your audience is unique to you. Even if it's working on a competitor that is adjacent to you, their message might be just slightly different and resonate with a different audience than yours does. And so really the big thing at the end of the day for us, and what I tell other people as well, is like, just test everything. Like even, certainly your copy, even down to the colors of the buttons, and like, just make sure that on your website, you're testing, tracking, measuring every possible thing, because you do need to resonate for your specific audience that is seeing you.
Okay, great. Some knowledge there for our listeners. And well, let's switch gears a little bit then, and let's talk about you as a leader, being the head of platform partnerships at Everlance. Brad, what are some key tasks you like to focus on your day-to-day work?
Yeah. So with the partnership specifically, I focus on going out and finding new partners, as well as managing our existing partners, making sure that they're comfortable enough with the platform to then go to their workers and say, hey, we've vetted Everlance, we trust Everlance, we know that Everlance is a great platform, and we would like you to use it. We think it could help. So I manage that channel, and then as well as I manage our organic channels. So if you go to everlance.com, the blog, you'll see a lot of pieces I've authored, as well as anything from our app store messages to LCM emails and things of that nature. The joy of being at a startup is you get to wear a lot of hats. So I'm certainly no stranger to that.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Great to hear that. Then, so then, how do you like to stay up to date with all the news, trends, strategies out there in the marketing world? Is there a preferred channel that you like to stay up to date with?
Yeah, honestly, I try to stay like out of the fray for the most part, because there's always just so many trends, and some of it you're questioning, and some of it actually becomes a great idea. But like, ultimately, the beauty of what I found in marketing is human nature is human nature, and so I I really like to observe people and observe companies and like how people are doing, how companies are talking to them, what are they doing. And so I'm very big on like going and just downloading apps and just seeing what they're doing. I do have some different types of, I have like a Twitter account. I do have a couple newsletters that I'll read, and I do read a lot of books because I do think that by reading books you can kind of suss out what are like the quick trends of May 2024 and allow like the cream of the crop of the ideas to rise to the top. So I try to focus on just some of the more what's going to be timeless, like so you're not like chasing that rabbit of, oh, I saw this on this day, let's do this, and then next month there's a new trend out and you're shifting everything back over this. I can't keep up, and I don't want to keep up, and I don't think it's efficient to keep up. So
definitely. Okay, awesome. Good, great for that for our listeners there. And well, let's jump into our next section then here, Brad, which is our rapid fire question rounds. Are you ready for them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. But well, first off then, Brad, what is the last book that you read?
The last book I read was called The Fish That Ate the Whale by Rich Barton. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's an interesting book about like the early days of the banana business in the United States, and how bananas really used to be a luxury. And this immigrant founder who was actually out of Boston, which is where I'm from, or not from, but where I live, is he saw that this company was taking all the bananas that if they had, or like were starting to ripen, or if they had like a little bruise or something like that, they were just throwing them away. And he figured out that he could actually take granted, remember, this is the 1800s. So he figured out that he could take these, he could fill a train car with them and do that whole route and sell them right out of the train car, and do it more efficiently and faster than the big company. I forget the name of it now, but I think it's United Food Company. Then they could get them to even to the store. And so people were like waiting for this train, the banana train, to come. And by acquisition, it actually becomes Chiquita brand, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so it's a great book. I didn't expect to be thrilled by a book about bananas, but I really, really enjoyed it.
Definitely. When you make it, when you first start off, write a book about bananas, you're kind of like, yeah, but the story does sound like an interesting. So definitely a good read there for our listeners. And well, next up then, Brad, is if there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be that one thing that you want to have fixed for your role as a marketer today?
That's a good question. Something I have always been like frustrated, but it's like not solvable. I had a mentor who told me very early on, he's like, if you can figure out why someone wants a red sports car, you will do well. And a realization I had kind of like relatively early was like, well, everyone wants a red sports car for different things. Like you can have your lookalike audiences, but one person might be trying to prove it to themselves. One person might be trying to impress the girl down the street. Like there's all these different, your life really like influences what you want. And so I would love, in a boundless world, to understand that person's entire life when they come to our website and what influences the decisions that they're making. Obviously not realistic, but it's always something that's like stuck with me, that you just can't get from like a certain demographic audience or lookalike audience or anything like that.
Definitely. Okay. Well, but the interesting take there. Love it. So then, is there one repetitive task that you could automate? What would that be?
That's a good question. I think for me, although it's kind of automating myself out of a part of a job at least, but sometimes you're not sure what to test. Like sometimes sometimes it's obvious. But sometimes you're looking and you're like, what can we optimize here? And so I would love like a machine, and this might be coming with the advances in AI, but I would love a machine that spits out 4 ideas at me every single day and says like, go test this. And because sometimes it's just like, what can we do here? That's always a little bit challenging.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, definitely like that. And well, lastly, then, I mean, you have a lot of experience already in the marketing world, Brad, but what would be that one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you were to restart your journey as a marketer today?
Take more risks. I think once it clicks in your career that everyone's just kind of trying to figure it out along the way, it opens up your world to the idea that the risks that seem big when you're 23, 24, 25 years old aren't really that big. Like there's in marketing, like we've always heard, some of the horror stories, but most of the decisions that you're making aren't irreversible, and aren't going to cause, company chaotic destruction. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the times the decisions that we're making as marketers are like, did this result in 10% conversion or 11% conversion? And so really the outsized reward from taking risks outweighs the downside so much more. And so I wish that I could go back and tell myself coming right out of school of just take the risks, take the risk. That's my one piece of advice to myself.
Definitely some great advice there, not just for yourself, but for our listeners as well. And well, Brett, we are coming to the end of the show today, but before we do end, I do want to give you the last word. Say someone forgets everything about the interview today. What is that one thing they should remember about your company?
Throw away the notebook. There's a better way.
Love it, right? And I mean, it's just the easiest way to track your business miles. Check them out at everlance.com. Brad, thank you so much for being on with us. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm looking forward to our next episode at Pathmonk Presents. Thanks a lot, Brad.
Thank you, Ernesto.